Good evening. I'll call the meeting to order. This is the regularly scheduled Committee of the Whole meeting. It's the 9th meeting in 2025, and it is live streamed on the Town of Perth YouTube channel. I'm going to call on Councillor Smith, please, for the adoption of the agenda.
That the agenda for the regular Committee of the Whole meeting, August 12th, 2025, be adopted as presented.
Thank you. Any requests for changes? Comments? No. I'll call the question. Those in favour? That's unanimous for all present. Next is the usual reminder regarding disclosure of pecuniary interest. You can declare it now or at any time during the proceedings. We move on to the part of this that is a public meeting under the Planning Act. I have to read certain things that's required. The purpose of this public meeting is to discuss the official plan amendment application OPA 01-2025 and the zoning bylaw amendment application ZBL 03-2025 from Ricardo EFI Engineering for the property located part southwest half of Lot 27, Concession 10, Geographic Township of North Elmsley, now within the Town of Perth, municipally known as 2000 Rogers Road. The purpose of the official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment is to redesignate the property from its existing industrial designation to business park to allow for the proposed uses. The planner will provide a brief overview of the details of the file and details of the amendments. The public will then be given the opportunity to make comments and ask questions. Feedback from the public meeting and comments received up to and including the 26th of August 2025 will be considered and included in the Council's decision on the applications. If a person or public body would otherwise have an ability to appeal the decision of the Corporation of the Town of Perth for the zoning bylaw amendment to the County of Lanark and the official plan amendment to the Interior Land Tribunal, but the person or public body does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or make written submissions to the Town of Perth and County of Lanark before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. If a person or public body does not make an oral submission or a public meeting or make written submissions to the Town of Perth on the zoning bylaw application or the County of Lanark for the official plan amendment before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Interior Land Tribunal, unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. After a decision has been made by the Council regarding the zoning bylaw amendment application, persons wishing to formally register an objection must, regardless of any previous submission, file with the clerk of the municipality a notice of appeal, setting out an objection and the reasons in support of the objection, accompanied with the appeal fee to the Interior Land Tribunal. After a decision has been made by the County of Lanark regarding the official plan amendment, persons wishing to formally register an objection must, regardless of any previous submission, file with the clerk of the county a notice of appeal setting out the objection and the reasons in support of the objection, accompanied with the appeal fee to the Interior Land Tribunal. Should anyone wish to be notified of a decision regarding these applications, please sign the sheet provided at the back. I will now invite Joanna Bowers, Director of Development Services, to present her planning report. Following this, Council will have the opportunity to ask questions of staff.
All right. Also, the owners of the property are here and their agent. So if the agent, I believe, wants to make a quick comment when I'm finished, and they're all available for answering questions if required. So thank you, Councillor Bird. That was just for the public here. That was a very long and convoluted way of saying, if you have any objections, now would be the time to make them. And if you want to be aware of a decision, then the sign-in sheet is there in order to be notified. So I hope that's basically what that whole spiel was. So I'll just start. I have this PowerPoint presentation. I think the written agenda itself was about 10 pages, and I'm sure you have all read it and with extreme enthusiasm. I'm going to try to shorten it down quite a bit, but again, I'm available for questions. So this is a proposal that's been called Unity Square, and it's located at 2000 Rogers Road. There is an official plan amendment and a zoning bylaw amendment for it. Next slide, please. So this project, this is a sort of a project, a picture of it, what it's intended to look like. There is an existing industrial building on the property, which the intent is to reuse the building completely as it is, with internal modifications to allow for non-industrial uses. So currently the property is zoned essentially industrial. The proposal is to make it a business commercial site, which actually is a vast improvement. We don't like to see the loss of industrial lands, but in this case, because it's adjacent to a subdivision, a sensitive land use, it makes a lot of sense for this particular site to transform from industrial to a business commercial that still allows some it's called industrial 1 and 2 uses, but very mild industrial uses. And then on top of that, there are other uses such as like a cafe, business professional uses, wellness center, storage, that type of thing. So it's actually an improvement for the subdivision adjacent. So that's just a picture of the project. Next slide, please. So as I just said, the proposal is to amend both the official plan and zoning bylaw to business park special exception. A special exception is where we allow a particular area of the zoning to not quite be met, but there's a little section of it that's different. So in this case, the project meets all the requirements of the business park, except they were asking for a larger gross floor area for the professional business office space. Next slide, please. So the location of the property is highlighted in blue, along South Street and Rogers Road, of course. Next slide. And I was hoping this would be easier to read. These are available online, but that's the floor layout of the building, which just shows the orange area is the professional and business offices. The pink is like the cafe. The green is self-storage. The orange, I'm gonna have to look at my own. Sorry, guys. Is wellness center and, oh, sorry. The orange is personal service and above is the wellness center. Next slide, please. And this is just a picture of the site plan. So you essentially see the building in gray. And then there's areas in front of the building that are to be sort of landscaped areas where there could potentially be things like farmers markets or gathering spaces, community space use effectively. And then the parking surrounds the whole building. There's in and out around the property. And as you can see, there's significant amounts of green space still left over. So there's a lot of net positive benefit here. There's not a lot of things being changed. Next slide, please. So usually we draw the zoning chart to help sort of see where things meet the zoning bylaw, where they don't. I'll go through a few of these, but essentially we have to change the zoning because if we didn't, it wouldn't meet. It's industrial level building, so any proposed, professional offices doesn't meet industrial requirements. But once you change it to a C5 zone and you go through the chart, it meets all of the requirements under the C5 zone, aside from, like I said, their requirement for the Rose Flory area of the professional service office. Next slide, please. It's more of the same. You just see this chart there that says complies, and you can see, yes, it does. Next slide. So, like I said, there's a whole write-up here that I'm sure you've all read, but when you review it in its totality, it's required to meet the provincial planning statement 2024, the Lanark County Sustainable Communities Official Plan, and then our Town of Perth Official Plan. And it does meet all of those requirements. Next slide, please. So at the time that I had the agenda drafted and up until today, I have had no comments from the public. I did have one email of someone just asking if they needed to register. I suspect there's a few people that back there that may have some questions or comments, but I haven't formally heard anything. The Town of Perth Fire Department had no specific comments, but when we move to site plan control, they will have probably more comments about fire access routes and things like that. The building department really doesn't have any objections to the proposal, and they've just done a preliminary review, but they will obviously need a lot more detail about the inside of the building and how it functions and the fire separations and things. So they've just noted that. The Environmental Services Department had no objection aside from the fact to note that permeable pavers are not supported in our engineering guidelines. So the developer will probably have to look at a way to deal with those issues. There was no other comments from external agencies. Next slide, please. So I've made the recommendation to adopt these and submit the official plan amendments to the County of Lanark. So that recommendation will go to council to be discussed. But that is the presentation.
Thank you. At this point, if any member of council wants to ask a question or make a comment, happy to hear it, Your Worship.
Yeah, I noticed that one of the major proposed uses is business or professional offices. I just wondered if you had thought of perhaps a small grocery store, because it's been a long-standing complaint on the part of the people at the east end of town that there's nothing like a grocery store out that way.
I would have to actually pull up the zoning bylaw to see if a grocery store is a permitted use in that area, to be able to answer that specifically, but I don't have it in front of me. I can get back to you on that if you'd like, Judy.
Any other questions, observations? No, I'm happy to see that it's an industrial unit that doesn't have, according to the environmental aspect of it, any cleanup. So that's makes life a bit more straightforward. Deputy Mayor and then Councillor Bolt.
I know we're only at zoning here, but is the expectation that the majority of entry to the building will be on the Rogers Road side? Like are you expecting to have transport trucks going around the back of it once it's in use?
There is a loading bay. I believe it's to the rear of the property. So they are keeping, I believe, 2 loading bays.
Okay.
To the rear.
But will the majority of access be in the front of the building on Rogers? Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Councillor Bolt.
I was just getting your attention that the deputy mayor wanted to make a point. I'm happy with what I'm hearing at this point. I don't have any major concerns.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
I have no questions about it, but I think it's a positive for Perth. I think it'll fit in really well with what they have planned.
Terrific. Anyone else from council? Okay, then we will move on to the next part, which is you've mentioned written comments, and you're not aware of any.
I'm not aware of any. I just wanted to bring Christine forward to she had a statement to make really quickly. This is the applicant for the property.
Okay.
Is that okay?
We'll get to the questions, oral questions next. No problem.
Okay. Thank you. Good evening, members of council and public. I'd like to first thank Joanna for her presentation of the proposal and the Perth team as a whole for the work they've done with us to get to this stage. My name is Christine Stinson with EFI Engineering, and I'm the project manager working with the team on this project. I just wanted to take a quick moment to add a few comments on our proposal. The Unity Square project will take a building that's been underutilized and transform it into a place that community can enjoy and benefit from. We're proposing to redesignate it from light industrial to business park so that it can house professional services, wellness spaces, and other compatible uses. The kinds of things that people rely on day to day, like seeing your physiotherapist, meeting with your accountant, or grabbing a coffee. We're also planning streetscape improvements, permeable paving, potentially, new landscaping, and an open front plaza that could host seasonal markets or community events subject to permitting. The design adds a strong buffer between the residential area to the east and the light industrial to the south, creating a smoother transition, residential, then business park, then industrial, instead of the hard edge between the sensitive use and industrial that is there now. This change is about more than just zoning. It's about bringing new services, creating local jobs, and improving the way that this part of town looks and feels for the people who live and work here. And I will be sticking around to answer any questions or listen to any comments. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any questions or observations from council? Well, thank you for staying in case something does come up. So we move on to oral comments from the public. Is there anybody here that wishes to make any observations or ask any questions? Certainly. I'll ask you to come up to the microphone in the middle here and get fairly close to it, even though it's the newer one. And can I ask you please to state your name and address for the record purposes?
Certainly. It's Carol Ann Daneka. I live at 16 Bathurst Road in Perth. My question is, I'm a new resident in Perth. It's just been a year. But I do sit on the board of Lanark County Community Justice, and we have offices at 1883 Rogers Road. And we're having challenges finding office space, board meeting space, and spaces to hold restorative forums that are relatively private. Given the nature of our work, we can't walk into a school and do it. We have to have a door and some kind of privacy. Right now, we're located in the YAC office where there's children running around all the time. So that makes that area a little problematic for what we actually do. So my question is it possible that the developer consider designating some what you would call community space, but which would be spaces where charities can have their board meetings and potentially have private meetings with their clients, with their constituents, because it's a problem here.
Thank you. I can, if there can be some kind of response to that, it's specific in relation to charities.
Yeah,
Yes, thank you.
yeah, I think that would be a suitable use for the building. I would have no concerns with that once it went through. Obviously, it would be at the discretion of the owners of the building. So just of note, right now, the owners of the building are going through the official plan amendment and the zoning bylaw amendment. And then I believe they're kind of in a holding pattern until such time as they find maybe a purchaser for this project. And then they will go through the site plan application. So I can't dictate to someone what uses to put in their building, but there will be professional offices and office space, of which, from the sounds of it, is something that you would be able to look at and use. So if this were to go to full build out, it would be an area that you could absolutely use for that. Yep.
I would just like to add, and thank you for that clarification. We don't have a lot of money, so we're not going to be a profit center for boardrooms and meeting rooms. So with that in mind, is there a way to make it a real community space where different charities can come in and use the space when they need it? So that was my question. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming out and for speaking. Is there anyone else that would like to make any oral comments? Certainly, sir, at the back there, if you come forward. I have to go through the same thing every time with everybody, so it's all, please state your name and address for the record.
My name's Keith Fournier, and I live on Hughes Crescent, which backs onto the property that we're speaking about tonight. I just have two questions. One is my understanding from this plan here that there'd be no bricks and mortar. The building is not going to be expanded or right now. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, if this business becomes a real success, is there a plan to do that?
So again, at the present time, there's no plans for expansion. And in fact, we're just at the stage where we're approving the uses and the building stays as it is. And eventually the project will be sold to someone else. So that determination would probably be made by them. When I look at that site, I do see that there is room for expansion or for other things to happen. It still has a sufficient amount of green space that something could happen. Much like this, if something were to happen, it would have to be compatible with the residential neighborhood. So I wouldn't be going backwards and saying, well, let's make this industrial, right? We want to keep it either having some residential or some mixed use. And if a zoning amendment is required, that means to like allow a specific use or a special exception like we've seen here where we say you can build something, but you're going a little bit outside the zoning bylaw. Then just like this, the public would be notified, so you'd be aware of it and you'd be able to come in and make comments at that time. But as it currently sits, there are no plans for that.
Okay, I understand part of that. If in the future they decide to expand, when I built a house there and many other people, we have a buffer zone there. Now, is there a plan to expand into that buffer zone? Or is that was a stipulation when that industrial park was put in there and the subdivision was put in there, there would be a buffer zone. So, like, are they going to put a parking lot there?
So I can't, again, speak to the plans of whoever's going to buy it next. There would have been a buffer zone because the industrial uses that were there are incompatible with the residential uses. So they're loud, they're dirty, they have, odors and dust and all that stuff. So inherently, an industrial use shouldn't be beside a residential use without that buffer zone. Because we're removing the industrial uses, the uses that are going in, I think you can agree, like a wellness center or professional offices are not as problematic to a residential neighborhood. And so the buffer restrictions wouldn't be I don't know if they wouldn't be there. I would have to look at what the subdivision agreement said, but the buffer zone would have been put in to separate the noise and the dust and the odors from the residential neighborhood. This is no longer an industrial thing, so those same requirements under the Planning Act don't apply.
There's other industries there. There's a wood cutting place
Yes.
with a lot of noise.
Yep.
And my concern is if the town, like a lot of these things are pre-planned and we don't get to know about how long this has been in the works. We get a letter with a 3 weeks notice. And this has been going on for obviously a long time. So we don't, this application, whenever it was made, wasn't just made in July when we got the letter.
It would have been made probably about 10 days before you got the letter. So there's several stages, and I've been through this in a couple of meetings where you're right. We have been talking about it for a while. We have what's called a pre-consultation with the owner or the developer where we talk to them about what their project is and the required studies and all the process they have to go through. And at that time, the town is not permitted to discuss with the public anything because it remains confidential. But we are allowed to discuss it after an application's been made. So there is a lot of work in the background that goes on with staff that you are correct, the public doesn't know about. And then the developer goes away and does their studies and does their plans. And the reason we don't let the public know is because, you know, I'm gonna just throw the number here. 6 out of 10 times, it doesn't proceed. They might do their studies and say, oh, we can't afford to do this, or this isn't gonna work, or this could be a problem, and they scrap it. So for 100 pre-consultations I get, we might get 10 applications. So then, when they do make an application, I have 10 days for which I have to say, yes, you have all the required things, and it's complete. And then from that day, I have to give public notice. So I had the application and reviewed it only 10 days before you guys were notified.
Okay, my main concern is, as I said, if this becomes a very successful venture, you want to put a parking lot back there and a street, you know, and I don't think that in a future plan, I don't think that should be allowed when you have a subdivision backing on it, and the original plan the town approved had a buffer zone.
I can get back to you. I think I would have to go look at the subdivision agreement to see what it says, because I do know that a buffer zone would have been put in there to separate the industrial from the subdivision, but it would depend on the wording in the agreement. So I can get back to you on that if you want and see what it says. Okay, yep,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Councillor Bolt.
So if I could ask this question, I think I do know where Mr. Fournier is going with this. You know, he's lived there many years. I know where he lives, and he obviously wants to know that that buffer zone that's already there, he's living in quiet enjoyment of his property. So I understand his concern on this. My question then would be, by changing the zoning, if we're changing something, can we make any kind of a regulation or statement in changing that to state that for future development, the buffer zone must still remain at X number of feet or however? And I know you have to look into the subdivision agreement, and I get that, but I think that's kind of sort of where he's going, and I would have the same concern if I lived there. So it's more of a comment than a question, but
I absolutely respect where you're coming from. And I've said it before, I live on 87 acres for a reason.
yeah, exactly.
But I would have to look at the subdivision agreement. The thing about properties, all properties, is that under the Planning Act, they can always be rezoned. Every owner has the right to come before council and make a proposal.
Sure.
If it meets the Planning Act, then that's where we are. If it doesn't, then we have a problem and they have to sort of rejig that. Could you make a condition? You could. I suspect probably someone would say that doesn't meet the Planning Act. Like you're not following the Planning Act, and it would be scratched.
Okay.
But again, I don't know is the answer, so I will have to look into that and talk about it. I have not dealt with a question like that before.
Thank you.
The gentleman at the back in the green and blue, again, if you could please state your name and address for the record.
Kyle Troop, and I'm at 12 Hughes, just down the road. Our biggest concern, I think, is that we presume that the owners who live on our street as well would not want to clear that area and bring the parking lot or building right up. But we don't know what will happen in the future. And so, and I doubt that this particular council would want to put in a Walmart right behind us. But who knows what 5 years from now, that if once that zone comes in and there isn't a restriction or a buffer zone, we could end up with a Walmart right up against us, almost to our fence line, is how I'm reading this right now. So I urge you to be very considerate of the people who have lived there, that we find some way of preventing the loss of all the trees, because that's why we all bought there. We bought ahead of time. We're not like somebody who moves into right next to the airport and then complains about the airport. We're existing. And that's why we paid the money we did. And so I really urge you to look at the future on this, not just what's best for a few people in the immediate time frame. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Question on that? I think.
I guess the observation is the same observation, and I don't like it as much as anybody else likes it, but the way the Planning Act works is if there is a property, you can have the ability to rezone it and come to council. It's your right to come to council to ask. And then you go through due process. Does it meet the provincial policy statement? Does it meet the county official plan? Exactly the same thing as we've gone through. And then of course there would be comments from the public. And then we would have to put into place things like, depending on what it was, things like fences, or there would be in some cases setbacks, or, we'd have to work through that process for functionality, for noise, for sight lines and all that sort of thing. I think it's premature right now to discuss it because it's not part of this project, but I also very much understand why those concerns are there.
May I just ask a question for clarification? As this stands, there's no intent or need to remove any of the trees and bush around that particular area. Am I correct in saying that?
The diagram there says potential future development, which I think is probably what's causing some concerns. I do suspect, but I mean, I can send this back to you guys momentarily, but I suspect that's just outlining that there is the room to have potential development in order to get this project sold to another party. But if I can turn this over to Christine.
Just one other point on that is, as far as procedure, because it wouldn't be a re-changing of zoning if that what did come forward, there's still a process, an application that would have to come in to develop on that land. Is that?
If they came in with a C5 special exception, that's exactly the same as what's permitted here, then they wouldn't have to, but it's unlikely because this special exception is specifically written for the setbacks of this building and for the floor space inside. So if someone else was going to add something else, the use might be permitted, but they wouldn't meet the setbacks that have been outlined.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you. And I just want to add that we are all taking notes and understanding your concerns, which are very valid. We aren't asking for commercial zoning here. We're just asking for business park, and there is a bit of a difference. So correct me if I'm wrong, Joanna, but I don't believe a large retail like Walmart would be allowed in a
No,
business park.
It wouldn't be.
So we would then have to go for another official plan amendment or zoning bylaw amendment. And I don't think that that would suit this site either.
No.
This is more of a low traffic office space, plan. And so if there was going to be any intention of a big Walmart coming in, we would definitely be going through this whole process. And I probably wouldn't represent it. I'm here because I do like this project. So right now, this is as you see it. If anything else is going to change, we would have to come back to the table and redo it. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I saw another hand towards the back. Yes, you still like to come forward? Again, state your name and address for the record, please.
Stacy Hogan. I live at 18 Hughes Crescent, beside Keith. So kind of just echoing his concerns. I think the potential future development box on that drawing is unnerving. I'm not a planning expert. I am in project management, so I'm in Christine's field of work, but I don't know offhand what is involved in, like, what is included in a C5 zoning. So kind of to my neighbor's point, we don't know what could go up there in the future, and approving this plan with, you know, potential future development approved on the site plan makes me nervous. I think I like the sound of the project. I'm not saying I'm against it. I think it sounds great for the neighborhood. I liked Christine's angle on it kind of being a softer entry into the industrial park that continues down Rogers Road. But I think noting that our subdivision extends further than just this property. So kind of equating it to, well, it's not industrial anymore. Well, 2 doors down, it still is. So eliminating all of those trees eliminates a lot of noise barrier that continues on into all of our properties. So I think there is a little bit of a dangerous line there. Letting all of those trees go does impact the entire neighborhood. So that's just a little bit concerning. So maybe a better understanding of what could go in, or having that comment eliminated from the plan before site plan approval, or kind of to this gentleman's point, having a condition of site plan approval, some sort of statement in there protecting an older neighborhood in Perth. So not really a question, just a comment and kind of reiterating my neighbor's concerns.
Thank you for coming forward.
Thank you.
Question from the mayor and then Councillor Waterfield.
So excuse me, to address the specter of future development, if someone was to come in and this whole area is designated C5, whatever they wanted to do would also have to fit in the uses that were permitted in a C5, is that correct?
That's correct.
So it couldn't be just anything.
No, it would have to be the C5 uses. Is the roofing company still there? Yes, they are. The present zone is industrial. The present zone is industrial, so the roofing company would fit in that. Once the zoning changes, then the roofing company would have to go.
Through the chair to Joanna, I just want to get clarity. Will there be many trees cut down as a result of this, as was brought up by the previous citizen?
No, because it's essentially the existing building.
Right.
And they're actually adding trees, and they had suggested permeable pavers. We're going to have to sort of work around that, but they've actually proposed almost more permeable surface and green space, and the trees are currently remaining. Again, I think that a really good point was made about the rest of the area is industrial. So I have to look at where that buffer zone is in the subdivision agreement, because it may still be protected despite the change from industrial to C5 because of the rest of the industrial area. So that's something I would have to look into.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more oral comments from the public? Seeing none, any last questions or observations from council? Seeing none, Councillor Waterfield, we move on to the decision part of this in relation to the zoning? that we
Certainly,
discussed?
Chair. As recommended by the Committee of the Whole, be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Perth, 1, receive for information Staff Report 2025 Cal 9.1 from the Director of Developmental Services concerning Official Plan Amendment Number 19, OPA-01-2025, and Zoning Bylaw Amendment ZBL-03-2025 for the property municipally known as 2000 Rogers Road. 2, pass bylaw number 3304-19, being a bylaw to adopt official plan amendment OPA number 19 to the official plan for the town of Perth to change the category of lands from industrial lands to business park lands for the property municipally known as 2000 Rogers Road. 3, pass zoning bylaw amendment 3358-137, being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw number 3358 to change the zone category of land from industrial special exemption 2, M1-2 to business park special exemption X, C5-XX for the property municipally known as 2000 Rogers Road. And 4, direct staff to submit the official plan amendment number 19 to the County of Lanark for approval as presented in Report 2025-Cal 9.1.
The motion is officially on the floor. Does any member of council wish to speak further? Seeing none, I call the question. Those in favour? Sorry, Councillor Waterfield.
Chair, if I may, I would like just to make a quick comment.
Yes.
I've listened very carefully to the concerns of the residents of Hughes Crescent, and I empathize with your concerns. However, I would suggest that any future changes would be dealt with at that time, and there would be due opportunity then for the public and others that are concerned to present their concerns at that time. So I certainly see where you're coming from, but certainly I support this motion as it stands for the current application.
Thank you. I'll call the question. Those in favour? And that's unanimous from everybody that's here. That actually concludes the public meeting portion, and any members of the public here might want to take the chance to flee the scene because we're in for a fairly lengthy sitting this evening. So I'll just take a quick pause while that happens.
I know exactly where you come from and I support that. Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm 100% behind the concerns. Thank you.
Okay, so we're moving on to the official cow meeting now. And can I ask your worship, please, to move on section 5.1, the minutes?
Over again, that the minutes of the regular committee of the whole meeting held on June 10, 2025 be approved.
Thank you. Any requests for changes or any comment? No, I'll call the question. Those in favour? That's unanimous from everybody that's here. We have no scheduled delegations. We're moving on to section 7 correspondence. The first one being 7.1, Lanark County OPP Detachment Board's Coordinator Stephanie Gray, her report in regard to the situation table. And could I have you move that, please, Deputy Mayor?
Moved by myself as recommended by committee of the whole, be resolved that the council of the town of Perth receive for information the 2024 Lanark County Situation Table Annual Report from Stephanie Gray, Lanark County OPP Detachment Board Support Coordinator.
Thank you. I'm just going to say it now, and I may say it throughout the meeting this evening to move things along. A lot of what we're dealing with this evening is received for information. It's not necessarily to make a decision. So that would be the first one of those. Any observations, comments? Call the question. Those in favour? And that's unanimous from everybody present. 7.1.2, that's you again, Deputy Mayor.
Moved by myself as recommended by committee of the whole, be resolved the council of the town of Perth receive for information the 2024 Lanark County OPP Detachment Board on Policing Activities 2024 Annual Report from Stephanie Gray, Lanark County OPP Detachment Board Support Coordinator.
Questions or observations? Again, for information, I'll call the question. Sorry, did you? Not yet.
Microphone.
Okay, so for receive for information purposes, those in favour? And that's unanimous from everybody present. 7.1.3, Emergency Management Ontario. That's yours, Your Worship.
Can you turn on your microphone?
To turn on the mic. As recommended by the Committee of the Whole, be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Perth receive for information the 2024 compliance results from Emergency Management Ontario.
Any comments or observations? Call the question, those in favour? Again, that's unanimous for everybody here. 7.2.1, Climate Change Advisory Panel Student Engagement, and that is, again, you, Your Worship.
Turn your microphone.
As recommended by the Committee of the Whole, be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Perth amend the current Climate Change Advisory Panel terms of reference to permit the two student members, I think I skipped a line, to permit the two student members being of a minimum age of 16 years old and attending a school in Perth to be a resident or non-resident of Perth.
Any questions or observations? No, I'll call the question. Those in favour? And that's unanimous. 7.2.2, Elmwood Cemetery Board, and that is you, Deputy Mayor.
Moved by myself as recommended by committee of the whole, be resolved that the council of the town of Perth, number one, receive for information, excuse me, the correspondence from Diana Cross, Elmwood Cemetery Board, proposed changes to Highway 7 and Dufferin Road, and number two, direct staff to bring forward a staff report to a future committee of the whole meeting to assess the Elmwood Cemetery Board's proposal regarding proposed changes to Highway 7 and Dufferin Road.
Councillor Waterfield.
Chair, I'd just like to make a comment with regards to this letter sent by Diana Cross from the Cemetery Board. I think she brings up some very relevant points. And I attended the open house by MOT at the Legion, and I question as to why the west end of Dufferin was being closed and why the additional road was being put from Highway 7 east past of Blair's Furniture. And I never really got a clear answer. And I think the Cemetery Board has brought us some very legitimate concerns. I note that the motion that has been read, that staff will be giving us a report at a future COW. I want to get a timeline on that, because once we get the report, if there's going to be an action from this council, i.e. a letter to MOT, I want to make sure we get a letter to MOT so that it can make a difference. So I wonder if we can get a timeline with regards to that staff report.
Through the chair, we can probably do that for September. The concern with this and the reason that is being closed off there is because this town and this police service board has been lobbying the MTO and the province for years to make that intersection at Drummond and Highway 7 safer. So this intersection for this particular road does not meet standards, so that's why the MTO has responded to this council's concerns over the years and decades asking for safety improvements. So that's why they're closing it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments, observations on that? All right. The motion's on the floor. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Section 8, staff reports. And that 8.1 is you, Councillor Wardfield.
With pleasure, Chair. As recommended by the Committee of the Whole, be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Perth approve the following street names for the new roads proposed in Phase 6 of Perthmore Subdivision. A, Northgate Drive, and B, Parkside Way, as presented in Report Cal 2025 9.2.
And Councillor Wardfield.
If I may make an observation and follow it up by a question, Chair.
Yep.
When I read the report, the rationale of the suggested names certainly made sense. But I took the opportunity then to review all of the street names that we have in our town, and there's not one Indigenous name for any street in our town. We have a land acknowledgement that we have at the beginning of every council meeting. And unless this land acknowledgement is accompanied by concrete action, then it really becomes empty rhetoric. I also went and read the actual bylaw, and I'm looking forward to Joanna's comments. When I read the bylaw, it seems really dated. And I think that in order to express the diversity and the history and heritage of our town, we need to really relook at how we name our streets. And I'm a member of the board of the library, and I'm the board representative at the Indigenous Advisory Committee. And I believe this town, our town, needs such a committee to advise us with regards to opportunities like this. All the names of our streets are by settlers, and it doesn't fairly represent the history and heritage of our town. So with these observations, my question goes to Joanna. What do you think of my comments? I would like to see much more diversity in the naming of our town, of our streets, and could you clarify the process with regards to naming streets as well?
Yeah, I think you beat me to the punch, Gary.
Okay.
I had this discussion at senior management because I read the bylaw when we were going through this, and I thought very much the same as you. Like, this is very dated. And so I was hoping to have time actually to overhaul this bylaw and bring it to this council, but that didn't happen. Instead, I went on vacation. So that's it. But I am hoping to bring it at some point later this year. And the suggestions I had sort of brought to the table and others had brought to the table from management were certainly Indigenous, maybe some women from history, other notable people in the town. I think someone mentioned like Olympians. So, like there's a whole raft of different ways we can look at it, whether we focus on one or whether we pick, three from each sort of sector, as it were. The fact is that we are going to see more development and more streets being constructed. So we need to be able to prepare for that and have those names available. Generally what happens, to your question, is when we have a subdivision agreement or a private road that needs to be named, we send that bylaw to the developer and say, here's your list of names. You tell me which ones you want. And then we go from there. The ones that currently exist, I think, as I mentioned, are dated, but they're also very long. They're three or four words. And so when you have like emergency services, I'm sure Trevor can attest to it. And you have a street name that's 4 names long, like Sir, Reverend, so-and-so, so-and-so, or whatever. It can get really muddled and difficult. So we need to make those names very succinct. And so I think, my recommendation would be to leave the names that are in the bylaw, because they deserve to be in there as well, but shorten them to just the last name. So I'm working on it. And we'll bring that forward soon. But in this case, we had to work with what we had, and I think the developer took a look at that list and went, yeah, I'd rather propose some different names, which is what happened. So I have to bring them to you guys for approval.
Does that question, just procedurally, does that satisfy you to leave that with staff at the moment, Councillor Waterfield, rather than you introduce a motion at some point in another meeting?
Thank you, Chair. At this point, I look forward to getting feedback from staff with regards to revised naming street bylaw. That's one issue, but I think the second issue that I brought up is that certainly I look forward to having more diversity and choice with regards to names for our future streets, reflecting our heritage and our history and our diversity. But also, I think that as a town, we really should look at the possibility of having an Indigenous Advisory Committee to look at various facets of running our town and getting input from a group like that. So I'll just leave that as something to ponder, but I do look hearing back from staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Your Worship.
So the list of street names that appears in the report, is that a comprehensive list of current street names?
So the comprehensive street bylaw is bylaw 3909, and that has all the street names in the town of Perth. And the Perth Moore Development, they are requesting 2 new names, Northgate Drive
Yep.
and Parkside Way.
Yeah, I realize that, that list, if that's a comprehensive list, it's missing.
Okay, so it hasn't been updated in a while, and actually, to be
Ah.
quite frank, I was trying to go through and well, the clerk and I were going through to try to figure out what the process was, because the bylaw is a little bit difficult. And there were some street names that we thought perhaps were missing, so like that's part of the reason we didn't get it done. So if you've seen some that are missing, let me know and we'll include it
Okay.
in the next iteration of the bylaw.
I didn't check the whole list, but the street I live on is not there.
Okay,
Elma.
okay.
Absolutely.
So I think, Joanna, too, when we reviewed the bylaw in section 5, where a street is named in accordance with the street naming policy, the street name list on Schedule A and the corresponding map in the system may be updated without amending the bylaw.
Right, so it gets updated in the GIS system, but it doesn't necessarily amend the bylaw. So it's probably in our CGIS system, but it's still worth, if we're going to redo the bylaw, making everything line up. Thanks, Amanda.
I have a question, if I may, just for clarification. It comes out of this, but it's general in relation to the subdivision plan. When I saw one of the names, I got quite excited and wondered if we were actually getting another park or actual green space for the people living in there. That's been an issue in the past and has been raised in the past. Is that the case, or are we still dealing with minimum requirements from the town for green space?
Well, I think in the past, the minimum requirements weren't necessarily met in terms of either sidewalks or green space. What I can tell you is that there is a park. It is the minimum size required under the Planning Act, so we can't ask for more than that. But we're having a park, we're having lighting, we're having sidewalks, and we are having trees. So those are all things that are included in the subdivision agreement. We're not quite there yet. We're working on the pre-servicing agreement, which is an agreement that comes before the subdivision agreement that allows the developer to put pipes in the ground and build roads and have model homes, or like a couple homes that are like show homes that aren't attached to water and cannot be occupied, but it's just a show home. So we're working on that with the developer. We are awaiting some information. There's been back and forth, drawings provided, and we've made comments and it's gone back to them. So there's been a bit of back and forth in that regard, but we're getting closer to getting the pre-servicing agreement so that we can get to the subdivision agreement where we can hammer down the specific details, but we do have it drafted and all of those things are in there. I've seen the draft R plan, which is like a survey of the, oh, sorry, M plan, which is like a survey of the subdivision, and the park is in there. And there are sidewalks that are included, so.
Nice to hear, especially that efforts to not have the issues being presented with the previous.
Yeah, I think our development team has certainly heard from both council and from the public, particularly in the Perthmore subdivision, the concerns about all those areas. And so we have put those in as conditions and requirements, and we've had a little bit of pushback, but all in all, we're getting to a place where it should be met.
Thank you for that. So I'll bring us back on track because I just derailed us there. The naming motion is on the floor. Any further questions, observations? Call the question. Those in favor? And that is unanimous. Okay. Stand by. Some of the stuff, which one over is that? With council's consent, at this point, we're going to move up item 8.6 in relation to the tendering for the services. Because we have the people here rather than keep them. So. And that is yours, Councillor Bolt, 8.6.
All right, 8.6, moved by myself as recommended by the Committee of the Whole, be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Perth authorize staff to proceed with the tendering, the construction of the new environmental services garage and office building with no financial commitment at this time, as presented in Report 2025-COW-9.7.
Thank you. And a presentation before we have questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Through yourself, I have Amy Rancier here, who is our architect that we are working with. And so I'm going to start with introductions, but then I'm going to pass it over to the expert to walk us through kind of where we're at with this. So if we go to the next slide, please. As you know, we have our environmental services garage that since 2022, the secondary floor, which we refer to as the mezzanine, is uninhabitable due to building code violations. So since then, our environmental services team has been in a disconnected trailer on the site, and the building is at limited lifespan. And as you know, I've come before you with different options available through feasibility study that was done through our engineering firm, Eastern Engineering. If you go to the next slide, please. So with Amy, myself, and our Director of Environmental Services, we have sat down with staff to discuss the current pain points of their existing setup, as well as proposed concepts for a new shop, including, you know, what do you have and what don't you have? So we're going to pass it over to Amy to kind of walk through how we got to this point today, but I really want to reiterate the presentation that's coming before you today is just to consider what concept we've come forward with, and there's no financial ask at this point. It's just to demonstrate at what stage we've gotten to, and then we want to see if we can move to the next step with council support. So next slide, please. That's just another summary that we've met with RVCA to get the okay about building on the current site. And we have worked with Amy and engineers as well as Aegis, which is helping with our survey and geotech analysis as well. Next slide, please. These are the different areas that were identified, and Amy's going to walk us through that, so I won't hit on this too much for right now. And I think the next slide allows me, yes, Amy's going to come and step up and walk you through the process.
Okay, good evening, council. My name is Amy Rancier. I'm a local to Perth and I've been a practicing architect for 22 years. The last 7 or so years have been spent working on a lot of projects very similar to this one. I do a lot of work with MTO, including service garages, patrol yards, material storage buildings, and rest stop areas. I've also done some recent municipal projects in the past few years, one of them being the Rideau Lakes Fire Hall. That project came in under budget quite substantially, so I'm looking at similar material selections and the construction methods to be applied to this project as well. I also wanted to say thank you for giving me this opportunity to present this to you today. It's always a pleasure working in your hometown. I wanted to preface the following slides with a quick summary of how we got to where we are with our proposal. I walked through the existing garage with the team numerous times to get a good idea of their workflow, what each member does for the town, and a sense of what they need. The space they are in currently is somewhat Tetrised with storage areas and poor workflow. It's a bit of a maze in the existing garage. There was a clear indication that the space did not work for them functionally and also did not contribute to a good working environment with the lack of natural light and airflow. Because it's an existing prefab structure with 2 additions, it was not well thought out in terms of the layout. So even though it's 9,000 square feet with an additional mezzanine, there's a lot of that area that's unusable. My other concern, and perhaps a bigger concern, is that the existing building would need extreme remedial measures to bring it into compliance with today's building code. These items would include fire separations of the mezzanine, which is actually by definition of the code a 2nd story. This would mean fire rating floors and the walls, and updating the doors and ductwork in these areas to fire rated doors and dampers. Also, fire rating of the roof, and in turn, all exterior walls and load-bearing elements, and a new set of stairs for the mezzanine that would exit directly outside. Further to this remedial work, an addition would be required to fulfill the need of the staff and the future growth of Perth. After sitting with the team multiple times, we have come up with a layout that works well for their workflow. It was all taken into consideration carefully, as the team seems very dedicated to their work and they want to do their work well in a space that enables them to do so. We have also considered the possible need for future expansion in the design, energy efficiency requirements compliant with the new standards of the OBC, full accessibility, and gender considerations. The proposed building is 1 story, which eliminates many finicky code requirements. It will also allow for plenty of natural light and airflow with the double bays. Fresh Start allows for better use of the floor area and a building that is based on current life safety requirements. So I guess we can just go to the next slide, and I'll just go through these kind of quickly because I think we've already touched on a lot of these, but this is what we have now is an existing prefab structure with 2 additions on either side. There is a lack of storage. There's improper fire separations. There's a bit of typo there. A mezzanine with offices that are not occupied as they do not meet the OBC compliances, and vehicles that are washed outside, which poses difficulty in the winter months and environmental risks. Next slide, please. There is currently 1 washroom used by both males and females. There's 1 shower lacking any privacy. There is a lack of airflow through the garage and a lack of fluidity in movement between the bays. Next slide, please. Just make sure I'm not missing any notes. So what we need office spaces that are properly separated from the repair garage. So this would be a 2-hour separation. We need gender-friendly washrooms. We need a proper shower facility, barrier-free access through the whole building, and properly insulated spaces to meet the current energy efficiency requirements. Next slide, please. We need the use of natural light within the garage area for a better work environment. We need dedicated storage areas and a wash bay for winter vehicle washing. Next slide, please. So most of what we are proposing can be referenced in the floor plan and the elevations, which are a little further down the slide presentation. But we're proposing a new 1-story garage, dedicated drive-through bays for better airflow and vehicle circulation, an office admin area that is safely separated from the repair garage, and a brighter and more functional working space for a better work environment. Next slide, please. The use of, also the possible use of the existing prefab structure, the roof and the concrete pad for storage of overflow materials. Provisions for added employees by doubling up in the offices for future growth. And better washroom facilities for use by all genders. So the features of our proposal is basically a 6-bay garage, in-floor trench drainage and drive-through bays, adjacent offices and washrooms. The building will be slab on grade with no mezzanines, 20-foot clearance as requested by the team. And the building would be wood framed, conventional wood framed with some interior steel beams and steel posts. Some of the features of the building would be a small timber framed entrance canopy, just as a sort of a welcoming entrance, a metal gable roof with a 212 pitch, steel siding with masonry at the office entrance, which still we have room to sort of play around with that a little bit. And garage bays are to be heated with the use of unit heaters. So these are the preliminary elevations. The very top elevation would be the front elevation where you can see the timber frame gable entrance. Very similar to what we did in Rideau Lakes. And like I said, that came in well under budget. We like the use of gray materials as it doesn't show the dirt or, just easier to keep clean, but pretty straightforward. We can go to the next slide. This is the floor plan that's color coded to illustrate the different areas of the building. Basically, it includes 4 offices. The pink is common areas. The sort of light orange color is more utility areas. And then just the different dedicated bays within each section there. And if anyone has any questions on the layout, I'm happy to answer them. I think it's fairly straightforward though.
Deputy Mayor.
I think you've already answered. How many are the bays or drive-throughs?
So there's actually, I think we said that 4 of them are, but as requested by the team, there's actually, I think, there is 4 drive-through bays. And then the one on the very right, which is, I think the workshop, he requested to have a storage room at the back and his own office back there because he's the guy that's really in the garage almost all of the time. So he's only got the 1 drive-through bay, and then the wash bay on the other side, on the left side, prevents it from being a drive-through. But the upper portion of the building is really meant for storage for like the generator and everything.
So there's only going to be 4 drive-throughs.
There's 4 drive-through bays proposed. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Because then we'll get the motion on the floor for discussion. Okay. Questions at this point then?
So 2 questions. Was there ever any consideration of a solar roof?
We could do a future consideration if that's something that the town is interested in. What we could do is talk to the structural team to make sure that the roof is structured for solar. It's kind of, actually that site would lend itself well to it because it's fairly open, like around the building. We would probably have to look at doing a steeper pitch on the roof though.
Second question, where will you build it? I'm assuming the present garage would be in use while you're building it.
Where are we building it? Sorry, so it would be just in behind where the current garage is. And we did consult a contractor that I work with often to get some advice on how we could manage sort of keeping some of the existing garage while we build the new garage and to sort of phase it well. That worked well with the team. We consulted with the team as well.
So last question, Michael would answer this one. I remember us talking about this and, there's no financial considerations tonight. If we decide to go ahead with this, and we likely will, would it be in the 25 or 26 budget?
Through the chair, I'm going to walk through our proposed timelines for what that could look like. later on in the presentation. So if there's, you have more questions, but otherwise we can come back to that in a moment.
Councillor Bolt.
Thank you, Chair. So in your estimates, and I'm jumping ahead here, I know, but I don't see any line for the demolishing of any existing buildings here. So when are we going to see what the cost of the demolition is so that we can make a decision on the total cost of this whole project?
So through the chair, if you want to go ahead to the financial section, we can go through that process. So with the costs, what we did is a Class C estimate with Eastern Engineering, and they did provide us, or they're going to provide us with a demolition cost, but we're looking at a proposed partial demolition. So that looks like we do a partial demolition on the south side of the current building. So the building portion furthest away from the water treatment plant, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So that we can build at the same time, because the building is going to be facing Sunset Drive. So that elevation that Amy was showing. And then if we can keep the existing space, then that would help us just with storage, and it would reduce our demolition costs. So we will get a price point for that, as well as get a price point for any geotech that needs to get done for soil, which the Aegis seemed pretty optimistic that it wouldn't be too bad. But if we look through the process, we have our Class C estimate as well as soft costs and a contingency. But when we come back to you, if you're okay with us going forward with the tender, we'll then come to you with that full scale breakdown for the cost.
So will that, sorry, through the chair, will that be part of the tendering request then?
The demolition, yes.
Yes. Yeah, because we have to see the whole picture here.
Absolutely.
So I had another follow-up question, if I could, through the chair. So understanding you're going to keep some of the existing building for storage, and obviously I understand that you have to have heated bays for the winter time and so on. Do they all have to be heated? Is there a way we can save a little bit of money here by, cutting back the heating in all of those bays? Because I mean, a lot of these trucks don't have to be in a heated garage for storage purposes.
Yeah, we can definitely go back to the team with that to get an understanding of which ones need heat. I do know like their winter service trucks need heated storage just to melt the ice and everything, but we often do that like with the MTO projects. We will have one bay that is dedicated to cold storage only. So that is a possibility. It's building another interior partition that is insulated, basically. So I don't know what the trade-off would be in terms of cost, like how much you'd be saving, but
I'd be interested in seeing that, because I mean, this is a big hit for us here. And I mean, I'd like to look at all possible ways we can save money on this. I get it that we need a new building. I understand that, but we should be as pragmatic as possible and maybe think outside of the box when it comes to that.
Okay.
Just a comment.
Yeah. Then, sorry. The nice thing is part of our team does have the capabilities of getting those numbers for us. So if there's anything like that you'd like to see the comparison, we'd be happy to do so.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Are the four bays not open to each other? Or is there walls? But they're just it's just a wide open garage, just 4 drive-throughs, right? Okay. So I built one of these 5 years ago, just before I retired, and I had 4 bays. Yeah, there's no walls in between them. So you're asking questions about the heaters. The heaters serve the whole area. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, we can cut you off on your presentation as well. I'm just eager to move things along. If you want to finish your presentation, and then we'll take further questions.
Sure. Thank you. Through the chair, if you want to go back up, please, Michael, I can answer the mayor's question. So that's, I think Amy's gone over that. If we go to timelines, we would be working, if council's good with this, we would get down to a more detailed drawing and engineering scope and specs that would allow us to put forward the tender. Currently with the engineering firm, we're going into the school season for projects wrapping up. So they're quite busy with school projects at the moment. So that's why we'd be looking into the fall. And our goal would be then to release the tender in November and come back to council at the beginning of the new year and
see if we can award the tender at that point. And so 26 would be our goal for bringing this to life. So next slide, please. Like I said, the Class C estimates are, listing the prices at a plus minus 15%. So the engineers can do so much up to a certain point based on the architectural drawings that we have, because we didn't want to go into too much detail until we brought it forward to you and wanted to get your insight, rather than going too deep down our rabbit hole. But if you go to the next slide, please. This is the Class C estimate. So the service garage, he has put it at a square footage, and then the office space is a certain percentage per square foot. The optional crane, that is not included in the subtotal, but that's just to give you an idea about the cost for that, which would be in the interior of the garage. And then they also included a contingency of 10% and soft costs, which would include like permitting and that sort of thing. So their plus minus is 4.2 million at that existing drawing. If you go to the next slide, please. We also will have associated costs for, furniture and equipment, the generator, estimated additional cost about $150,000. So we want to lay everything out there, be transparent in terms of what that looks like for a full build. And also, as Amy said, environmental savings costs as well in terms of building an energy efficient building. Next slide, please. So what we're looking for council support tonight, like I said, is for us to just move forward with going into that tendering process to see about what it would look like for getting that price point back from people or from companies that would submit for this project. So at that point, we'll answer any more questions that you might have.
Thank you. So any questions for the people that have presented, and then we'll get the motion on the floor for discussion. Councillor Ball.
Thank you. So I've got a couple of questions. We have many times it's been drilled into our heads that construction inflation is 3, 4, 5 times that of the rate of regular inflation. So you're going to tender now. Is this tender going to be definitive in the sense that is there going to be a contingency from the people who submit these tenders to say, oh, well, plus construction inflation, because construction inflation can be 17, 20, 22%. So I'm told. So are we going to build in some protection for that? So that's my first question.
Yeah, we could definitely build in a contingency for that. I think if we're going to tender though in January or February of 2026, there's not too much risk. Everything's pretty leveled out right now. But that's something that we could definitely look at including within the tender as a protection.
Okay, if I may, then a second question. So with respect to the whole process, I'm always blown away by the fact that here we have right in front of us what your estimate for the cost of this building is, and you're going to tender. And if I'm a guy bidding this thing and I go, geez, yeah, that builds in lots of profit margin for me. Maybe I'll just come in at 4.1 million. Or maybe I'll look at this and say, sorry, can't possibly do that building for that, and come in, and they all come in higher. It just for my own edification, like, why do we put out what our estimate of the cost is going to be and then ask people to tender it? Like, I've always had a hard time understanding that process.
Yeah, no, I've had a hard time understanding that too. Because but at the same time, the contractors, especially right now, are very competitive. And we have noticed with the last few projects that I've done, I think 3 municipal projects in the last 3 years, and all of the bids have come in very competitively, especially from some of our local contractors, one of them who has already been involved in this project. So there is that out there that they have to be competitive and if they want to get the job.
One more question, if I can have that latitude, please. Canadian content.
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to be asking in this tender process for a certain percentage of Canadian steel, Canadian this, Canadian that? Because with what's going on south of the border, we don't know today if the cost of steel is going to be this or it's going to be that. I mean, it's so I'd like to support Canadian as much as I can. I'd be interested in your comment.
Yeah, well, what I can tell you is that all of the contractors are also interested in that as well. Because if they're buying American product and they're, then their prices are going up with the tariffs. So they are probably even more invested in buying Canadian product. And we've been seeing a lot of that lately, like switching over from American companies to the Canadian companies.
But can we insist on Canadian products where possible?
Yeah, I mean, we can do whatever we want, it's us paying them. So sure, we can insist in the tender but I just can reassure you that most of them, if not all of them, are desperately trying to stay away from American product.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Deputy Mayor.
So we are looking at a $4.2 million building. Despite when we go out for tenders and stuff, we're not going to have someone come back and say, we can do this project at 3.5, because you've sort of told us this is the real cost to build this.
That's not my experience, actually. We've put out bids. I think the fire hall, we put out, we got an estimate and it was like $1.2 million over what the lowest bid came in as. And that was done by RK Porter. I don't know if I'm allowed to, but that was built by RK Porter, and there were little to no change orders and some credits where the build actually came in at 1.2. So, or 1.8, sorry. We did very well with that one. And it was the same process. So it went through the Rideau Lakes. We had class estimates done that were made public, and we still had very competitive bids on it.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Councillor Woodfield.
Through the chair, I strongly support this motion. I think we need a new garage, and I'm very excited about that. We have to also keep in mind that when it comes to budget, we're going to be having this additional expense above and beyond normal operations for next year. So that will make financing a little and budgeting a little bit challenging, but I fully support the building of the garage.
Go ahead.
Can you orient the building for me on the property? And I was thinking it was before the old building, but are you saying it's going to be behind, like between the old building and the homes?
No, so it's going to be between the river and the old building. So it's going to be, if you go back to the drawing, I can. So go up, please. There we go. So the front elevation, the north is, so the front doors are going to be facing sunset. So that length is going to be facing, those bays are going to be facing sunset. And then the back facing, Michael's going to look it up on a map. The back is going to be facing the river's edge.
Yeah, I was a little worried there at one point. We were going to be driving out over the.
No, we did
Good.
multiple renditions
Yeah.
in terms of different options, and we walked the property and we looked at the floodplain. So essentially, our goal is that we would take down the south end of the existing garage, and then we're going to build in that rectangle right there. So the front door is going to be almost in behind the water treatment plant, if that makes sense, right there where that arrow is. Does that, yeah.
Okay, any further questions for the presenters? Finding that, yes, Councillor Bolt, can you put the motion on the floor for further
I
discussion?
believe I already have. Have I not?
I see. That's just a glitch in the matrix. So any further discussion? If I may, your council's indulgent here because finances have been referenced right across the board here. Finance director's here. Can I ask just a simple question? Where do we get the money for this? Sorry, where would we get the money for this? Are we by definition borrowing?
I think what we'd have to do, as we kind of discussed this afternoon during the finance update, is that when we do the prioritization for all the projects that are to come through within the next 10 years, if this was included as a priority, then that would be included in that budget. And then when we had looked at the budget, if it is for next year, then we would have to see how much is coming in from what we proposed for taxes, what we expect our reserves to be, and yes, borrowing if that was required to be able to do all the projects that we needed to do for that year.
Thank you. To put you on the spot, I just wanted to reference earlier today.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Waterfield, you got a question?
Microphone.
If, Chair, if you wouldn't mind, I'd just like to have a follow-up question to Nev with regards to the question you just asked.
Seems fair.
During our session this afternoon, if I remember correctly, you stated that it's estimated that our reserves would be at a minimum at the end of next year. So therefore, we need to keep that in mind in terms of financing this project. Because by the time it's all said and done, I'm thinking around 4.5 million, give or take, and possibly a bit higher. So when you look at our total budget, which is roughly 17 million last year, give or take, that is quite a large chunk looking at our budget for next year. So I'm just pointing that out in terms of context for the public this evening. So would you agree with my observations?
Yeah, through the chair, like when we did have that conversation this afternoon, I think we went through our reserve health for sure. And our proposed reserve amounts for the end of this year was going to be 3.2 for capital projects. So if we just looked at that and said, you know, we were going to do this project, then obviously we could not use all of our reserves because we would be at zero. So as Councillor Bird had said before, it would likely be borrowing that we would have to do in regards to completing this project. So it would hit our ARL as we discussed, right? Our limit in regards to debt. And we would just have to look at it in the future, like in the long term to say, you know, this is where these are the projects that we consider as a priority. This is what we're going to do in these years. And then kind of prioritize that way and set our debt thresholds in regards to each of the projects in every year, if that makes sense, to make sure that we can sustain that and keep our reserves at a certain level. So if we use debt solely, our reserves would stay, right, in theory, at the same amount that we had, as long as there's like, and everything else was status quo.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just ask a question of the CAO here? Would it be fair to say that we're pretty much, our hand is pretty much forced on having to go ahead with some kind of project in relation to putting right what is no longer standard or up to standard? Having said that, this is not quite the first step, but it's a preliminary step, and we're not committing to anything yet. It's the first stage. Am I right in saying it's the first stage in looking at what we can do?
I was gonna say through the chair, but you are the chair. I'm not sure. I think we're beyond the first step. Kathy's been several times to council. We've discussed different options between renovating the current building and building new or building somewhere else. So I think we've narrowed the field already. This is probably the first step down this chosen path. Yes. No commitment today from council, as it says in the motion, but just looking at moving this forward. And yes, the current building has outlived its lifespan.
Thank you, Your Worship.
I got a clear answer to my question about the 2025 budget to the 2026 budget. Which is it going to, assuming we will go ahead, which is it going to be assigned to?
So through the chair, it was the same exercise, similar in discussion that we had from last year, is that it wasn't included in this year's budget and said that we would bring it forward to council for their consideration at that time. Based on the timelines, I'm assuming that we'll do that same exercise for 2026.
I remember the discussion. I just don't remember the conclusion.
Yes.
Thank you. Unless there's further questions, I'm going to call the question right now. Those in favor? Yes, and that's unanimous from those present.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'll just stay right here. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Moved by myself as recommended by the Committee of the Whole, be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Perth pass bylaw number 4586-3, being a bylaw to provide an exemption from the municipal alcohol policy to allow the serving of alcohol samples on a contained section at Harriet and Gore Streets for the Perth Night Market event taking place on September 13th, 2025, as presented in Report 2025, Cal 9.3.
Deputy Mayor.
Hi, thanks. I read Kathy's report. Makes sense to me. But Kathy, who are the people going to be selling alcohol? It wasn't in the report. The name, the company,
Oh, it'll be the Perth Brewery, and I believe Top Shelf will be a vendor. We do it every year, and it's just samples.
Great, thanks.
You're welcome.
I'll put my mic on now. Any other questions? No, the motion's on the floor. I'll call it. Those in favour? And that's unanimous. 8.3. Did you upset someone, Councillor Bolt? Because you're on everything tonight.
Because it's to do with the division that I deal with.
Yeah. The next one then, please.
This is 8.3. Okay. Moved by myself as recommended by the Committee of the Whole, be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Perth authorize the Director of Community Services to submit a grant application to the Ontario Trillium Foundation Seed Grant Program for an upset limit of $100,000 for the implementation of further recreation programming and planning, as presented in Report 2025-Cal 9.4.
Your Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Two questions, referring to the phraseology about further programming and planning. Could you elaborate on that a little? What sort of thing you'd like to do if you get the grant?
Sure. Through the chair, you may have seen that we just did an August Boredom Busters activity calendar for the month of August. And that's an example of us being told and feedback that there's nothing to do in Perth, air quotes, for youth. And adults actually asked if they could also have a Boredom Busters calendar made for themselves. We don't have staffing to provide that. So it's our staff just doing it on top of their regular tasks. So this is a prime example of we want to increase our recreational programming and offerings through our existing facilities, which will therefore increase our revenues, but we don't currently have capacity with our current staff. So we are using this as an opportunity to see if we could hire somebody to help implement some programming that could get launched and then maybe become something that's sustainable once that grant funding runs out, that we could have either a part-time staff member through the programming fees or just something that our staff could pick up once it gets going.
So when you use the term capacity, it means that you don't have the staff to do the programs you'd like to.
Correct. If I said to one of my staff, can you please take this on, then what gets dropped? Because they're already at a full capacity of their workload. And so we have to have those hard conversations. The seed grant with the Ontario Trillium Foundation is a tricky one, because it's how can you increase your capacity, increasing opportunities. But we can't do that really unless we actually bring somebody in to help us do that. So we have ideas, but we need somebody to come and help support that. So that's what we're trying to do.
Do you see the number of people wanting to use the pool and its programs growing because of the growth in population, people from Smiths Falls coming to use it, so on?
Through the chair, absolutely. Our numbers are much higher. Our revenues for memberships and for programmings is much higher. And all of our programs at the pool, for instance, sell out. So we already feel like the programming itself there is at capacity with our schedule. So our manager of aquatic services is doing her best to make sure that it's still an accessible space that people could use outside of, programming that you have to sign up for. But it's increasingly popular.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Deputy Mayor.
I asked this question before on another issue, and Michael and I talked about this. Is this something that Kathy could be allowed to do without coming to council? I mean, it'd be, you know, if you got it, then you bring a report back saying, hey, I did this work. It's a lot of work to do the grant programs, a lot of writing reports takes a lot of time. And I wasn't sure, how do we allow Kathy and the other directors to go after grants and stuff? Because they know the business, we don't. And if they are successful, then you come and tell us, hey, we were successful doing this. But I'm just trying to reduce the workload, because you had to do all this, then come to us and then come back again. I'm just trying to say, is there a process that you do get permission, just go for it?
If I can answer through the chair, I actually don't mind bringing it to council, because I actually like informing you of what our ideas are or what kind of projects are happening, especially if we do get a grant, or if it's heard through the community. It's nice to bring it to you first. So it doesn't take us long to do it. And I actually prefer bringing it to you, and you can ask questions, and then you kind of know what's on our radar. And I feel like it's actually a great communication tool.
But I guess through the chair on that topic, for programs or for things that are already in the budget, we don't necessarily come every time for that. It's for things like this that are beyond what council's already approved us doing. So again, I think it's a good transparency thing between staff and council.
Thank you. Thank you, though. Yes.
Any other questions, observations? Motion's on the floor. I'll call it. Those in favor? And that is unanimous. 8.4, Councillor Bolt.
Moved by myself as recommended by the Committee of the Whole, be it resolved, the Council of the Town of Perth authorize the Director of Community Services to submit a grant application to the Enhancing Access to Spaces for Everyone, acronym EASE, Communities Grants Program for an upset limit of $60,000 for the installation of new flooring in the women's change room at the Perth and District Indoor Pool, as presented in Report 2025, COW 9.5.
Questions, observations? Then I'll take the chance to make one. I know I have the same irritating question all the time when we come to things like this. And this is the way I like the opportunity to be able to speak to you, is just for the public and community that's listening. Is this something that we would have to do anyway? And therefore the grant is helping us offset the cost?
I mean, it's an asset. It's a facility. The flooring is old, but we don't currently have it in our budget to replace this flooring. However, when we see opportunities like this to address a pain point that's been identified by staff and our patrons, then we're going to jump at the opportunity.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll call the question. Those in favor? And that's unanimous. 8.5.
Yeah, it's me again. Moved by myself as recommended by the Committee of the Whole, be it resolved that the Council of Town of Perth receive for information the 2025 Community Grants to Others Report as presented in Report 2025-COW 9.6.
And before I ask for any questions or observations, remember this is for information. And I think the Deputy Mayor was first, and then Kathy Whitfield, then the Mayor.
Thanks for the report, Kathy. One thing that I would like to know in the future, I know we can't probably ask was, I'd like to know the financial contributions from the surrounding municipalities for these same groups that we fund. If we can, I don't know if we can ask them when they do this on an annual basis going forward. Like for example, the table. So we know we give them so much money. I'd be interested to know if they could tell us how much they get from Tay Valley and Drummer Thelmsy and anybody else who contributes, but I'm not sure we can ask that of them. The reports really don't tell us that.
Councillor Waterfield, then the Mayor.
Yes, Chair, just a comment. I read through the report and I actually found it very informative, because I was always very curious as to specifically how the funds that we provide to these community groups, how are they specifically being used? And I just found it very informative, and it gave me some insight. So I appreciated getting that report.
Yes, it is something we've asked for in the past. Your Worship.
Okay. And my comments are basically the same. I think one of the unintended consequences of this request is that perhaps these people have had to put together in a little more detail what they do, and so excellent report.
Councillor Bolt.
Thank you. The only comment I'd like to make is that in the past, for some of our larger donation or contributions, or whatever you want to call it, for the people that are getting these funds, like the table, has been in the past where we've asked actually to see their financial statements. That way you can see how much money they're getting from all sources, and you can see what their actual operating expenses are. I don't expect financial statements from somebody that's only getting $3,000 from us. But when we're giving $15,000 or $30,000 a year after year to these user groups, I think we have the right to ask for financial statements. Just a comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Well, I'll call the question. Those in favour? Again, unanimous. And the next one.
Well, that we've already done. Environmental, we've already done that one.
8.7.
Oh, 8.7, I'm still there. Okay. Moved by myself as recommended by the Committee of the Whole, be it resolved that the Council of Town of Perth pass bylaw number 4427-1, being a bylaw to 1, amend bylaw number 4427 to repeal and replace Schedule A, and 2, authorize the mayor and clerk to sign a renewal memorandum of understanding, or MOU, with the Perth Stingrays Aquatic Club as presented in Report 2025-Cal 9.8.
Questions? Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favour? Unanimous. 8.8.
Moved by myself as recommended by the Committee of the Whole, be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Perth accept for information the presentation regarding the upcoming launch of the local loop as presented in Report 2025-Cal 9.9.
I have a presentation.
Questions, observations? Oh, we've got a presentation. Can wait, Your Worship. We've got a presentation. Thank you.
So through the chair, thank you for this time. I'm bringing this forward to you just to review for information, but of course, again, it's that whole idea of transparency and council insight is important. So we want to do something, if you go to the next slide, please, that you might recall that back in the day, we did the municipal connection with the Perth Courier. And so what this was is that every week we had something posted just for what was upcoming, whether it was planning notices, it was events, it was information that was shared, and it was one page that we put out in the newspaper. We have used our website and our social media accounts quite well. They've been very popular. However, we also understand that we want to make sure that we can connect with every resident and business owner in an effective way. And we decided rather than going to the newspaper route, we wanted to make sure that it gets to everybody's mailbox. And so we wanted to look and see what that would look like for sharing those upcoming events, milestones, and more. So next slide, please. So this is what we came up with. Crystal, our communications coordinator, and I just had a discussion about, a local loop. Many municipalities will do it in different ways, but we wanted to deliver it straight to people's homes or to businesses. So next slide, please. So it's quarterly, and our proposal is that we want to do it direct mail through Canada Post. And why we did that is we had a discussion about why don't we put it in water bills for our residents, but that wouldn't be equitable. And by that, if there's renters who don't get water bills, then they wouldn't actually receive this. And so we felt like it was more worthwhile to look at the route of the Canada Post concept so that we make sure that it gets into every mailbox. And then we'd also have an e-newsletter version as well. So next slide, please. So that's just summarizing that. I won't go through that again. Next slide, please. We have an existing advertising budget that we use for the whole corporation. So it's not just within tourism, for instance, it's with the whole corporation. So that budget might be used if we're doing promotions for, let's say, a job ad through LinkedIn, but also we can use it for something like this. So we looked at what it would cost. It's 22 cents per piece, and it's it's 11 by 17 bifold. And then we have mailing fees that go out with it. So this still works within our existing budget. So we're not asking for more money, which is great. So we can go to the next slide, please. I've put it on your desk just as an example of our first draft for the first newsletter that we'd like to put out this fall. And so what the goal would be for this is essentially to do some milestones or do some celebration storytelling in the front. So if I go back to my journalism days, it's like, what's something that's going to catch your eye that you can read about that's celebrating something happening within the community. And then the interior, the second page is kind of our council corner. So if we're thinking about what projects are we doing, what meetings are coming up, in our first issue, we have something from the mayor, and then we have some photos as well. And then the next page, we have what's coming up as well as something from the fire department. And then the back is for recreation programming. So this may change throughout the time. And if you go to the next slide, that kind of gives you an idea about what are some examples of this. But it's really so that our vision is that somebody puts it on their fridge and they have it as a reference point that they can keep on their fridge every quarter. And it's something that they can get updates from the town on and feel like they have something in their hands that they can use to reference anything coming up, whether it's from dates or it's just information that's happening within the municipality itself. So next slide, please. I think it's just questions. So this is for information that I'm presenting it to you, but I also think it would be remiss, if you want to come to me and have a personal conversation with me about your insight or provide feedback, then we can definitely, I'd love to hear from you because this is something coming from council, from staff. And I think we just want to make sure that it represents the municipality and connects well with our residents.
Okay, so it's going to be the mayor, Councillor Smith, and then Councillor Waterfield.
So, my congratulations to Crystal for putting this together. Some of it, most of it, I think is a great idea. Like you say, it's people can put it on the fridge and they have company on the weekend, what's going on, and they can check this and find out. However, one of the things that we talked about doing something like this is that we're in print, we're portrayed only in the newspaper, and they tend to get things wrong and have a certain bias. So when I envisioned this, there were a couple of things that I envisioned that we could, most of the stuff people could find on the website if they knew how. Is things that really were of interest to people in their day-to-day life. For example, you could tell them when Craig Street's going to be finished, because that's annoying to a lot of people. What's going on with the dog park. We could reiterate that the land tribunal mediation, what dates that's happening. People keep asking me, is anything happening with the golf course? And so that type of thing. Plus, I'm told that people think that this council has done nothing, which the direct opposite is true, that in each issue we could list projects that this council has been responsible for finishing over the last 3 years. That would be my comment. I would be happy if those listing our successes.
So through the chair, if I may, thank you for your input. We had a lot of conversations about the timeliness of this, and if information changes, we want to make sure it's as accurate as possible. So that's where we use our Engage Perth platform on our website and our social media and the website itself for on-the-go updates. So Craig Street is a great example. Like things have shifted throughout the construction process on an ongoing basis. And this would get done about, 4 to 6 weeks before it goes to print. So that's the hard thing about just those changes that occur. We want to be mindful of making sure that we have information that's as accurate as possible. But I understand what you mean in terms of what's coming up. We can incorporate some updates throughout that if it's done in a timely way. So it's great insight. And the other component, in relation to council getting things done, as you said, we would love to do a summary for our, let's say, December version of here are all the projects that got completed. And then in the new year, here are all the projects coming up, so that it demonstrates that commitment of transparency about capital projects, operational, like construction projects, so that it demonstrates just, where the money is going for budget. And so we felt like the end of year and beginning of year are really good times to do that, because that's kind of the end of year summary. So that's what our thinking was in terms of theming some of the content related to that.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Councillor Smith and then Councillor Waterfield.
I just wanted to say a really good job, Kathy. And one question, how often is this coming out?
So it'll be quarterly, so it'll be every 3 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Barry. And the kudos goes to Crystal. She's the one who put this together, for sure. But I'll pass that along.
Through the chair, Kathy, I also praise the initiative for this particular publication. What I think is important is that it complements our social media presence, and not every citizen in town is active on social media. And I've had a number of citizens come up to me and they said, Gary, I'm not on social media. I'm not on the internet. And I think that this complements that. So that multi-pronged communication approach, I think, is really serving the spectrum of all of our citizens. So thank you very much.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I'll call the question. Those in favour? That's unanimous. 8.9, another alcohol one.
Surprise, surprise. Moved by myself as recommended by the Committee of the Whole, be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Perth pass bylaw number 4586-4, being a bylaw to provide an exemption from the municipal alcohol policy to allow the serving of alcohol on a contained section of street in front of 14 Warren Crescent for Top Shelf Distillery's annual Ontario Moonshine Festival, taking place on August 22nd to the 24th, 2025, as presented in Report 2025 Cow 9.10.
So to speak to that?
Sure. This is, you're going to keep seeing these come up. So I think what we're going to work on is looking at either the alcohol policy or the special events policy to say, if council has approved this event, then we can move forward with it every year or something along those lines, just so that it's an administrative task that we're currently doing. But we want to be mindful of the bylaw and the policy in place. But this is just some backgrounder.
Questions, observations? Seeing none, call the question. Those in favour? And that's unanimous. 8.10.
Moved by myself as recommended by the Committee of the Whole, be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Perth authorize the Director of Community Services to submit a grant application to the Rural Ontario Development Grant Program to an upset limit of $50,000 as presented in Report 2025-Cow 9.11.
Any questions? Seeing none, call the question. Those in favour? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Yeah. Uh-oh, something's happened here. It's Councillor Smith. It's your
Yeah, wow. Moved by myself, as recommended by the Committee of the Whole, be it resolved that the Council of Town of Perth, 1, discontinue the annual dispersal of 40 garbage bag tags per household and implement a bi-weekly 1 bag limit for curbside waste collection. And 2, direct staff to bring forward an amendment to bylaw number 3215, being a bylaw to regulate the management, collection, removal, and disposal of waste material in the town of Perth, as presented in Report 2025 Cow 9.12.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Bolt. There is a
All right.
presentation.
Oh, is there a
I'm
presentation?
jumping ahead.
I've already read the presentation, but he can make it. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Advance it, Michael. So I'm going to get just a three-page overview to support my report this evening. Just the general overview of this program is the idea of pushing burying waste, essentially. So promotion of the green bin program is really the backdoor initiative of this, is to make use of these green systems so that we bury less material. The other benefit of this program is the reduction of the administration of bag tags. So essentially, when we've done reviews, that we're seeing 1 to 2 bags at people's front doors. So instead of going through the whole administration process of issuing tags, essentially we're recognizing what's truly happening in the field. So when staff has done a review of time that's taken to administer bag tags every year, it's about 16 full days of staff time. The printing costs of tags, we print, just for numbers, 40 tags currently at 2,500 stops is 100,000 tags. So the elimination of that printing costs, and essentially just less visits to the town hall, essentially 2,500 less visits in the town hall annually. I would identify that Perth has the most extensive curbside program in Eastern Ontario, short of Brockville, Kingston, and Ottawa, with the only municipality that has a green bin program. So we have that weekly green bin component. So in front of you, you have the tools that we have presented to the public and is available for diversion of all the material that leaves their house. Also, I put that idea in that Perth has its own waste facility. So some of these other municipalities, if you make changes to this process, essentially it has costs to it. We don't essentially charge ourselves. So if whatever waste we collect at the curbside, we don't charge ourselves for those bags, whereas some of the neighboring municipalities that don't have a landfill site, those tonnages would drive their rates up. Before I go to the next slide, I do have a bit of an anecdote that you may have heard previous councils, but I did receive a call from a family that was new to Perth, and they said, we understand through the promotional material that we put our paper products in the blue bin, anything boxboard, cardboard. In our yellow bin, we put our glass, metal, and plastics. In our green bin that picks up every week, we get everything that breaks down naturally, your food waste and any organic waste. There was a pause then. What do you want me to put in the garbage? So that really sets the tone for what our program is all about, is diverting as much product as we can rather than burying it. So go ahead, Michael. So currently we have the 2 weekly, the yellow and the blue bin program that's now taken over by the province. We have the weekly green bin, and we allocate 40 tags a year. And this has been in place for, I'll say, a decade, when we implemented the second phase of the green bin program. So essentially, from our set out reviews, we're seeing one or 2 bags a week in varying levels. And our waste bylaw allows for a 98-liter bag, which is that black bag. That volume is allowed for deposition at the curb. What we have seen is a general trend in the decrease of the green bin usage. So as our population has increased, we've seen a flatlining or a slight decrease on a per capita basis of people using the green bin, which is quite disappointing because it's really the star of the curbside program. I want to identify to council that green bin is not the extra item. It's not the nice to have item. It is the core of the waste management program, is diverting as much waste and not having this buried waste legacy in the future that causes issues for generations to come. The idea of diverting that material that does not produce leachate and becomes an organic material is very critical. And I would suggest outside Perth, we're one of the envied municipalities for having that program. All right, Michael, next slide. So what I'm proposing in the program through the discontinuing the dispersal of green bag tags is a continued 2 streams of the recycling, the weekly green bin program, and then having a 1 bag set out for every 2 weeks, which is that 98-liter bag. So in front of you, what you see in practical terms is how much waste you can put every 2 weeks in front of your house. So yellow, blue, green, and the garbage. So there's the numerics of what we have for collection on an annual basis. I would identify that our tags are a very reasonable cost. I feel at $3.30 or essentially a cup of coffee. If you choose to have an additional bag at the curb, it's pretty inexpensive. I don't believe that people will be driving to the landfill site with their extra bag. It's more economical for them to buy 10 bags at $30 and put that extra 1.2 bags at the curb. I have had a 11th hour request or identification of what if we move to 2 bags instead of single bag for every 2 weeks. That would be an increase in service because now we're issuing 40 tags a year. So if you do 2 bags every 2 weeks, you're now up to 52 bags at the curb. So you're essentially increasing that. I'm not concerned about that financially because there's not a penalty because again, we're not charging ourselves for more garbage. But what it does is it continues on that theme of people not choosing to use the green bin when it's easier in their perception to put it in the garbage. So what I would suggest is we may see a slight increase in garbage because people just by arbitrarily having another bag are not going to generate more waste, but they're going to make that choice not to put it in the green bin and probably into the garbage. So, Mr. Chair, that's just a summary of my report with the basis of just reducing the administration at the front for tags.
Thank you. Councillor Bolt.
Well, thank you. I actually have a couple of questions and then I do have some comments if I could have that latitude. The first question, Grant, is probably a Nev Jandy question, but I'll ask you first. How much revenue per year does the sale of additional bag tags generate to the town of Perth?
Councillor, just off the top, I don't know that. It's in passing, it's very few people we have come by additional bags at this point.
So that leads to my first comment. I personally have been taking a great interest in how many people don't put bag tags on their garbage. And I've kind of been driving around for a number of weeks and I've taken pictures. And I would estimate that there's probably 15% of people in the town don't put tags on their bags. So clearly, to me, that means that our bag tag system is broken and people are just going to do whatever they want. I physically watched a downtown merchant put 2 bags on the curb last week with no tags on them. So my point is, I really don't care if we get rid of the bag tag program because people are going to abuse it anyway. So my concern is this. Number one, I don't think and I know where you're going with Grant, and I agree with you. We want to get as much diversion into the green bins as we can. But by taking the bag tags away with a 1 bag limit, the guy that's driving the garbage truck isn't going to give a rat's bum if he's throwing in 1 bag or 10 bags, because unless we enforce that. And number two, there's just my wife and I at home, and we fill our green bin. Every week, we divert as much as we can, and I'm still putting out a garbage can equivalent to the size of that bag. So yeah, I could live with that 1 bag system. But the problem is anybody more than a family of 2 is going to need a lot more. And so I personally don't feel that a 1 bag system is enough under your proposal. I think a 2 bag system would work for most people. And if they needed more bags after that, then charging them for a bag tag or whatever might work. Where I'm going with this is that we have to put, in my opinion, more emphasis on education as well. There's a lot of people in the town here, a lot of taxpayers that maybe are oblivious to the fact that our lifespan at the landfill is ticking away. And we've already put away, I think it was quoted to me tonight, over $3 million for the eventual closure of that landfill. And it's going to cost a lot more. And when we have to close that landfill, it's going to cost the taxpayers of the town of Perth a lot more money if we have to have it trucked away. So rather than rambling on, my point is this. I would propose that the town of Perth, in conjunction with your proposal, spend some more money on educating the public about this very fact and encouraging them to use the green bin system more because that wall of cost is coming at us. And even though it's 12 or 13 years away, I think that's going to happen like that. So I currently cannot support a 1 bag. I would support a 2 bag system. And then whatever we're going to do for people that have a family of 6, I guess we're going to have to figure out a way to achieve that. But I know even where I work, I compress probably 5 bags every 2 weeks into one bag because they're not all full. So I'm trying to conserve as well, but I don't feel that I can support. I know I won't be able to support a one bag system, at least not initially. Maybe once education kicks in and people start buying into the program better. And let's not forget, our population is going to increase exponentially over the coming years with all the developments going on. So that's going to put even more pressure on filling up that waste facility even more quickly. Thank you for your time, Council.
Your Worship.
I said not putting garbage in the waste site is like putting money in the bank. And that's the ideal. A couple of concerns when you talk about education and collection. There have been occasions when I lived at my other location that, a bag snuck out without a bag tag on it. Glenview picks it up anyway. My concern with a one bag system would be a family where there's a couple of kids in diapers. That would be difficult. Oh yes, on the topic of green bins, in the summertime, almost always you get maggots. It's not pleasant. I don't know what the ideal system is, but just making those comments.
Thank you. Councillor Waterfield.
Through the chair, I understand where Councillor Bold is coming from in terms of education, and I support Councillor Bold's concern and recommendation there, and I think it's a good idea. However, I do support the motion, and what I think we could possibly do, maybe slightly amend the motion, is that we try one bag for a period of time, i.e. a year.
I agree.
And after a year, we get feedback from citizens. Concurrently, we increase education. And if it works, great. If we find that we get substantive feedback saying it's not working, we could then at that time possibly change it to 2. That would be the route that I would suggest. Thank you.
Okay. I just wanted to point something out here in the proposed curbside program that's on the screen at the moment. I got quite excited at one point and thought, oh, the blue and the yellow bins are going to be weekly now. They're not, they're remaining bi-weekly. Each one is bi-weekly, right? So they're not actually weekly like the green bin. But that is clarified underneath. So basically now we have a potential amendment to the motion. That it be as if it go, we need to vote on that aspect of it. That it would be for a year as a trial, as opposed to a complete policy change forever. So can I have people speak to that, please, whether they accept that motion?
So through the chair, I won't support that because my concern is there's going to be a major backlash on this issue, and I still don't believe that one bag, for a lot of people like me it is, but for a lot of people it's not going to be achievable. I'd rather still go the other way and say, okay, we're going to start out with 2 bags, and we're going through education and so on, maybe prepare the public for the fact that this is going to go from 2 to 1. I'd rather go that route. My question then would be to Grant, if we were to follow this amendment and stick to this one bag system, so the garbage guy is going around and Mr. Smith has got 3 bags out, what does the garbage man do? Does he throw all 3 bags in, or does he leave 2 on the curb and pick 1? I like, how do you enforce that now? How is this going to be enforced if you follow that system?
Through the chair, if we implement a single bag or a double bag, then the person on the back of the truck will be charged with picking up either that single bag or the double bag, and whatever is in excess of that would be left.
I'd like to see that happen because they've been very neglectful in doing their job that way already. I'm not trying to be facetious, but let's face it.
I've been remiss here. I should have asked Councillor Waterford, are you actually making an amendment, a proposed amendment to the motion that's on the floor?
Chair, I am making an amendment, a proposed amendment that the one bag be a one-year trial.
So we're at the discussing the amendment to a trial now only, and then we'll move on.
Just, excuse me, I just wonder why we have to put time on. Let's just start with one bag. And if there's a lot of yelling and screaming, then we'll change it to two. Because if we do it for a year, they may get very upset, as Jim said, in 2 months.
Okay, so just to Councillor Waterford does officially have a suggested amendment. Can I get a read from the council on whether you're prepared to deal with that this would be a year trial? Who would be in favour of that? Can I see a show of hands, please?
I would not support it because I still feel firmly about the two bag system. So for that reason, I would not support it.
Sure, can I?
Yeah.
If I can just comment on the one bag proposal and whatever council decides, I mean, council sets the service level for residents and you're responsible to our residents. It's not a one bag limit, it's one bag free, but just like our water and sewer, just like hydro, just like natural gas or anything else, the waste is a utility. So if you use more, you pay more. If you use more water, if you keep your house at 25 degrees in the winter, you pay more for your natural gas or your hydro. So the same is true here. If you put out more garbage, you pay for more garbage. And that it's not shared by the rest of the taxpayers, or not subsidized by the rest of the taxpayers.
So I still have to deal with the amendment motion that's on the floor before we discuss the details of the. So if we could have a conversation in relation to that, I'm still trying to get a gauge here. I don't know if I have to go around every member and ask them whether they support it.
I would support it just to get this done, get it over and done. It's taking too long.
What the doing an annual, yeah, Gary.
Gary said,
Yeah.
It's a staff report not to go to one bag every 2 weeks. Why are we amending the motion? Like, you're amending a motion that already says one bag every 2 weeks. Now you're saying one bag every 2 weeks?
Sure.
But they didn't have a date on the trial. So
Well, Gary's proposed motion was for a 1 year period.
I have a question, Grant. So I fully support the issue of trying to save our landfill site. And my question is though, and I'll tell you, I had a conversation with Grant before the meeting. My concern is that none of the apartment buildings have to follow this. So an apartment building, I don't know, do they pay separate? No, they pay it's based on their taxes, right? But you take Perkins Building, for example, big building. You could have someone in there filling up 3 garbage bags a week and dumping them down the chute, and that's it. They don't have to worry about what they're doing. Whereas we're now asking the homes in Perth to follow the new rules. And I'm wondering, should council be looking at trying to put in some program with the apartment buildings to reduce the amount of waste there? Like, how do I know what the apartment buildings are throwing out every week? They could be throwing out 10 times as much as my home, right? What's the impetus on them to use a green bin? Like, it's on the homeowners, right? It's not on the apartment buildings. And if I understand correctly, we're going to have several more apartment buildings coming online here in the next couple of years. So they get a free pass on our goal of trying to reduce the amount of stuff going to a landfill site compared to a homeowner.
Thank you for raising that because I was trying to work out how I'd shoehorn that in as chair.
Well,
Thank
I
you.
don't want to put it back on Grant, but my point is we're doing our best as homeowners to reduce our impact on the landfill site, but it's pretty difficult to enforce this in an apartment building because you could have people who don't want a green bin because they're in apartments. I know Grant and I have been around a long time and we've had this discussion 15 years ago about green bins in hallways and in stairways. And sometime in the future, I guess, I think council has to look at trying to convince apartment buildings to be green bin compliant as well and reduce and say that we're only going to pick up as many apartments are there in that building. That's how many bags we're going to pick up on a weekly basis. But that's pretty hard for the truck because they're being dumped in a big bin. But I don't know. Anyway, if I can say one more thing, I think this issue has to be really well educated to our citizens because they're not going to look at saving the landfill. They're going to look at, here's another thing the town's taken away from me. I used to have 2 bags. Now I'm going down to 1 bag. I was originally going to say before your amendment was, why don't we do a soft introduction, say there's no more bag tags starting in September. And until December, you may put out 2 bags, but starting in January, it's going down to 1 bag. And perhaps that gives people 2 or 3 months to really get in the habit of using their green bin and really recycling. And then you say in January 1st, it's 1 bag. Because we are going to get pushback on this no matter what.
Can I call the question on the amendment and that is in relation to this, whatever we decide on the program, it would be only for a year and then we'd review it. Can I call the question on that and see if it's supported? So the question, Councillor Waterfield? Yes. Anyone else? Those against? And it didn't get your vote there, Your Worship.
I do not support Councillor Waterfield's motion of 1 year.
So that the
1 bag, 1 year.
Defeated. So we're back to the main issue. So going down to 1 bag every 2 weeks. I'm going to ask a question, Grant, of you that has been posed to me by a couple of my neighbours. So it's not off the top of my head. They have a concern that the answer to this, if you have an excess of 1 bag, is that you will get in your vehicle, drive down and pay the rates. Fair enough, they have no issue again at the waste management facility. Their concern is this the first step before we start reducing how many bags you can take to the waste management facility?
Probably 2 parts to that. I would suggest that people are not going to drive to the landfill site with a bag and pay the fees when the per unit cost of a tag is $3.30. They're probably going to buy a ribbon of 10 tags and then just put it their regular waste and pay that $3 fee at the curb rather than driving down repeatedly to the landfill site. The second part was ultimate closure, like prohibition at the curb?
Not ultimate closure of the waste management, but is this sort of thinking going to lead to people being restricted on how many bags they can take per week to the waste management facility?
I don't see that happening. It's a pay for service fee. So as you bring your material up, it's weighed and you pay that fee. No, I don't see that happening any time in the future.
And thank you for clarifying that the tags are still going to be in existence and that people can purchase them. Deputy Mayor.
So I'd like to make a motion that the council of the town of Perth approve the idea or stop issuing bag tags this September. We will allow our citizens to curbside up to 2 bags per resident every second week up until December 31st. And then starting January 1st, it's 1 bag every 2 weeks. That gives people 3 or 4 months to get their head wrapped around the idea. Can I do this and meet what we're expecting from them? And then that also gives them time to purchase additional tags if they're not able to meet it. And I don't want to put a trial period on it. It's 1 bag and that's it.
Okay, so that's another proposed amendment to the motion that's on the floor. So can I have people speak to that, please?
Microphone.
Do we still get our tags in September this year?
Don't need them.
Okay.
Councillor Bolt.
I'd like just a point of clarification then on this whole thing. So essentially what's being proposed here is we're going to eliminate the free bag tag program, but we're still going to continue to sell tags for people that need them that feel that they have to put out more than one bag every 2 weeks. Am I correct?
Through the chair, that's correct.
Okay. So, all right, no, that clarifies my point, because I thought by eliminating, we were completely eliminating the program. So in effect, people are still going to be able to buy extra tags if they can't do the one bag.
Yeah, through the chair, we have 100,000 tags in inventory. Just that's the allocation we need for print volume. So we have those tags available.
And that is $3.30 a tag?
That's correct.
That's right. I looked up, I think Councillor Bolt had asked how much revenue we got generated in previous years. I looked up last year's budget was about 3,000.
Yeah.
So there's not many people that are putting out.
Being abused.
Yeah.
So we have an amended motion on the floor. Can anyone else wish to speak to that before I call it?
I would support that in terms of education. It does allow people to get used to the idea and change their ways, sort of thing. The only other question, I think it was Councillor Bolt asked, how's it enforceable? Because I'm pretty sure that Glenview would pick them all. Whatever's out there, they'll pick it up.
Yeah, and I think we hear that concern, and several of you have brought that concern to Grant or I over the years, and that's a continued, we talk about education for residents, but also education for our waste collector, and I think there's a very high turnover rate on the back of the truck. It's not a glamorous job, and it's a continued enforcement and education effort that Grant will be targeting.
Yeah, and through the chair, just to echo Michael's comments, the strongest person in this chain of waste collection is the lowest paid person on the back of the truck. So we try our best to reinforce that, but there is a high turnover. So it's engaging that person and enforcing through Glenview Iron that this is the new mandate, and we will be holding firm on it.
So that they would be held to effect to their contract? That would be part of the contract, that whatever number we decided put to every 2 weeks, they don't take in excess of that.
That's correct.
I'm going to have the clerk, if you've got it. Oh,
And Grant, the people who still have tags from this year, haven't used them, can continue to use them instead of having to come in for 330 to buy extra tags.
Yeah, through the chair, we have that perpetual question. We have tags from 10 and 15 years ago that we still honor that were the old print color. So any tag can be interchangeably used. It says the town of Perth as long as it's valid.
Okay, and you mentioned in one of your emails, or maybe the report was, if someone has a medical condition, so I'll just tell you, I'm in the diaper business again with kids, but grandkids. When you're doing 4 and 5 diapers a day, it's not going to take long to fill the bag up. So I'm just wondering, how can we, or how do you assist senior citizens who use adult diapers, as well as families with maybe 2 or 3 kids, well, let's say 2 kids in diapers? That does cause quite a challenge for people.
Yeah, through the chair, I have a couple approaches to that. In general, in the recommendation, it says amending our waste bylaw that we have currently on the books. So there's some minor changes. A couple of things I would suggest, and I've had the leniency in the past where members of the public, I've been given direction by council, though it's dated, that I have the flexibility to issue tags at will based on valid concerns of the community. I have had people that have had medical issues that generate a lot of medical waste volume, and I issue tags. I record it quietly. I just need to know that it's valid. So I have reviewed other larger centers like Brockville and Kingston have a great waste bylaw that has a grace component where you can make application and justify your extra needs, be it large families, time of year like Christmas or Easter, and medical issues from say adult or junior diapers or medical waste. So when I do update the waste management with the basis of this unit count amendment we're talking about now, I am going to include that in the waste management bylaw amendment.
Councillor Bolt.
All right, so I applaud that idea, Grant, but the issue at hand right now, and I'm going to say it one more time, we are, by passing this motion, we are penalizing families because there's no way in heck that a family of 4 or 5 or 6 is going to be able to put out 1 bag a week. So I would welcome changes, or I would welcome some thought into that, because I'm going to tell you, I think we're going to get a huge backlash. For that reason, I'm not supporting the amendment, and I will not be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, just for the mechanics of it, I'm going to have the clerk and deputy mayor thrash out what the wording is for the amendment.
So Ed, I have something in draft, but just let me know if it's accurate. So as recommended by the Committee of the Whole, be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Perth directs staff to implement a soft introduction to the discontinuation of the annual dispersal of 40 garbage tags per household and implement a bi-weekly 1 bag limit for curbside waste collection beginning January 1st, 2026.
Makes sense to you, Grant?
I don't think you recognize the transition from now to the end of the year, though, I think is an important piece of information for the motion.
And what was part of that?
That's a 2 bag limit from now until the end of the calendar year.
I'm sorry, what is it currently?
It's tag based, so it's however many tags you want to put out.
Oh, I see, right.
So we're going to maintain the 2 bags a week until January 1st, then it's going to go down to 1. That'll give people several months to get used to the blue bin program, green bin, and everything else if they don't use it.
And sorry, that's a 2 bag bi-weekly? Okay, so it would be direct staff to implement a soft introduction reflective of a 2 bag bi-weekly limit to the discontinuation of the annual dispersal of 40 garbage tags per household and implement a bi-weekly 1 bag limit for curbside waste collection beginning January 1st, 2026.
So that is the motion on the floor. Any further discussion to that?
Should we put in per household, just to be clear?
Yes, we can do that. We're so reflective of a per household 2 bag bi-weekly limit up to the discontinuation of the annual dispersal of the 40 tags starting January 1st.
So, Mr. Chairman, my only comment to Kathy is this might be a really good thing to put in your first issue of Loop to really educate people on what we're trying to accomplish, because there will be lots of questions.
Or send emails.
Excellent. So that is the motion on the floor. I'm going to call it now. Those in favour? And nay? Councillor Bolt. So that passes by majority. Yes. So the amendment, you just have to vote the other amendment. So now we're going to do the whole motion with the amendment as attached. So I'll call that question now. That's the whole motion as amended. Those in favour? And it absolutely reflects the last one, as it should do. Thank you. Yes. Okay, so moving on to 8:12, and this is a surprise for Councillor Waterfield, pleasant or otherwise, if you could read that, please.
Certainly, Chair. As recommended by the Committee of the Whole, be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Perth, one, accept the sole source quotation from G. Tackaberry and Sons Construction Company Limited for the paving of Tom Street, John Street to Peter Street to an upset limit of $55,277.79 plus HST, and two, pass bylaw number quadruple X, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute an agreement with G. Tackaberry and Sons Construction Company Limited for the paving of Tom Street as presented in Report 2025 Cow 9.13.
Is there any presentation? Because I keep tripping over that. So, questions, observations, Your Worship?
So when Tackaberry, for example, put in their original quote to do Tom Street, that did not include doing the second lift, correct?
Yeah, I'll take it through the chair. The general contractor that had done the work for Tom Street was unable to finish it using the existing subcontractors. So we approached one of those subcontractors, being Tackaberry, and asked if they would honor their price to do the work directly for the town of Perth rather than through the general contractor.
So let me rephrase that. In general, if a road builder submits a quote to pave a street, does that original quote include the second lift the next year?
Let me see. I want to phrase this appropriately. The general contractor was unable to complete the work, so we approached the subcontractor to do the work. This was not the original contractor doing the work. Generally,
I realize that I'm not talking necessarily specifically about Tom Street. I'm talking about in general, if somebody contracted to do whatever street, would that quote, original quote, include the price of doing the second lift?
Yes, it would. We pave streets in 2 concurrent years for quality reasons.
Through the chair, Grant is choosing his words carefully on this because there was some challenges at the end of the year with the contractor. I've sent council an email earlier this evening with more details that should help fill that in for you. But yes, it is normally included in the original contract. This is still within the budget. It's not costing us any more. Grant has just found a solution to get this work done that avoids the previous issue.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay. Motion's on the floor. Call the question. Those in favour? And that is unanimous. 813, and that is Councillor Smith.
Moved by myself as recommended by the Committee of the Whole, be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Perth, one, award contract ES 2025-10 landfill final cover materials to Arnott Brothers Construction to an upset limit of $821,759.90 plus HST. And 2, pass bylaw number XXXX, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk sign an agreement with Arnott Brothers Construction for the installation of final cover materials at the Perth landfill site as presented in Report 2025-Cow-9.14.
Through the chair, I'll just a quick overview. This is a placement of impermeable soil on top of the inactive footprint of the landfill site that will be permanently closed. So this is a long-term liability issue. So we're taking this off the books by completing this work. So it's an innovative approach by staff that have come up with using some of the material that's on the site and screening it and processing it and reusing it as cover, and then importing the balance from a sand stockpile by the contractor. So it's to import, process, and place the material for final closure.
Any questions? I saw a lot of material coming from the Craig Street construction into the waste management facility. Is that the kind of thing you're referring to, that can be repurposed?
In a version that is appropriate, but that sand that's coming to Craig Street is so premium that we're trying to use it for other better uses. You are not going to find a better sand product in Perth than that. And a lot of the initial streets that built in Perth were from that Craig Street, Beckwith Street hill. So we're going to try to optimize that rather than use it as cover for that material.
Thank you. Just happy that we're reusing stuff. Okay. The motion on.
Just on that, Mr. Chair, I just want to, Grant alluded to it, but I just want to commend staff again. If you'll recall, a couple of years ago when we did the landfill expansion, it was an in-house project where we saved several $1 million. This is saving both money because we're reusing some existing material, but also a good environmental win where we're not digging up and hauling material with trucks. We're reusing material instead of digging out virgin material. So a good win environmentally and financially.
Nice to tick both those boxes. So I'll call the question. Those in favour? And that is unanimous. Number 9, CEO and Director reports and updates. The policy now is that it's an assumption that they've been read. Does anybody have any questions coming out of that, specifically for interest? Councillor Waterfield.
Through the chair, Grant just happens to be at the mic. Grant, this is not related specifically to your report, but it falls under your leadership. We've had a lot of discussion tonight about recycling. And during the summer, I spent time Canada Day with Councillor Bolt volunteering. As many people know, I volunteer at the Stewart Park Festival in Stewart Park. I walk in Lastewel Park most days. And in none of our parks, we have recycling. And I find that hard to reconcile in my mind because, we just spent a half hour talking about recycling. You came up with the statistic of we are a leader in Eastern Ontario in this. I've had multiple citizens coming up to me and saying, Gary, this doesn't make sense. Like, how come we don't have recycling in the parks? And I don't have an answer for that. And perhaps if you can give me some insight into that, and also I'm sure citizens listening will be interested to hear that as well.
Through the chair, over the last 20 years, we've had several initiatives with facility recycling programs with Eco Perth, people like Alfred von Meerbach, where we had grants and we implemented corner recycling receptacles throughout Perth. I think we had 12. What can happen in two parts? Basically, the idea of contamination comes in, and one person puts the wrong item in that recycling bin and somebody then puts something else, and then it becomes a garbage receptacle. And those best efforts of recycling become contaminated, and they're not worth the effort, or there's not resources to sort that material out. So those receptacles that were intended for recycling often have become waste receptacles and are not usable and are so contaminated that don't meet our regular recycling regime. It's a lot like the stuff that you put in your green bin or blue or yellow that says the recycling on it, but ultimately it doesn't get recycled. It's that same expansion of that idea. So I would strongly urge people that events like Stewart Park Festival, where they have the environmental group that segregates and takes care and control of the recycling, that's the best way to keep that stream isolated and screened. And we can process that to our receiving body. But community open depots just have not worked in the past.
Thank you very much for your answer, and that provides insight. Are you aware of any other efforts by other municipalities with regards to this in terms of trying to recycle in public spaces, i.e. parks and so forth, or is if you speak with your peers, are they pretty well in the same boat? Has anything been tried? I'm just trying to expand the conversation a bit.
Through the chair, I can investigate with our neighboring municipalities, but we tend to be the front runner on that. But I can report back to council on that about localized recycling systems on the street or through special events.
Thank you. I appreciate your insight. And as I said, I've had multiple citizens approaching me on this, and it's just kind of hard to reconcile. On one hand, we're so proud that we are champions of recycling when it comes to residential and commercial, but when it comes to our public spaces, it's just not happening. And I understand the rationale behind it, but let's, I don't know, keep our eye on the ball. If we can come up with something in the future, I think that let's not drop this. Let's kind of see if we can come up with something down the line. I appreciate your insight. Thanks.
Thank you for raising that. It's if I may, it's a fascinating thing. Stuart Park Music Festival, it was supervised by volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
If you'd gone on the same day and looked at the recycling outside of Tim Hortons, you would have seen exactly what the director has just spoken about. They're just all garbage cans, regardless of what the label is on them. It's a tricky one to try and solve. Any further questions on the director's reports? Councillor Ward.
Through the chair, I had one question of Kathy. Kathy, I noticed that there's been an advertisement for an Indigenous collections specialist at the museum, which I'm intrigued and excited about. And I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about it. Is this a new position? I saw it and I said, wow, what's happening here?
Yes, so through the chair, this is the result of a successful grant that we received. Catherine Jameson, our manager of tourism and culture, was the applicant for this. Please don't ask me the name of the grant, because I just forget on the moment. But so that is what it's been one of our goals through the museum's strategic or master plan to be able to do the repatriation of Indigenous items in our collection. We talked about staff capacity earlier, and so this is a great example of utilizing a grant to help us get some of those goals completed.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Not seeing any more. Move on. There's no new business as part of 10. And the next meeting is Tuesday, September the 6th, September the 9th, 2025 at 5:30 p.m. And Councillor Smith is in the chair. I ask if there's any questions from media, but I don't see anybody on the space. Nothing. Councillor Bolt, can you move the adjournment, please?
Yes, finally moved by myself that the committee of the whole meeting held on August the 12th, 2025, adjourn at 8:16 p.m.
Thank you. Those in favor? Any nays?